Okay, this is now the tarot question and answer number 12. And I've got some notes over here. The thing is, I like to do everything in one take. I don't like to make multiple or a number of different recordings and then put them all together. So I like to begin at the beginning and work all the way through. And so I've got some notes here just to, because I figured out in advance what it is that I want to say. So today is not particularly the tarot, but I wanted to give you something useful and practical that you can apply partly with tarot readings, but also with your life. And it began with, sorry, I'm looking at this thing here. Somebody left a comment from a couple of videos ago, and she's in the US and she's waiting for the government check to arrive, and she's all sorts of real difficulties. So she wondered what, she didn't really ask anything, but she made a comment about being patient. And I thought it would be nice to suggest something. And so I said, I'm not minimizing or making light of her situation, but what about picking a single card to know what to do next and then see what happens? And I had a reason for that. So I'll get to that in a minute. But after I sent the reply, I was thinking, what would the actual question be? Because words matter, and the words that we use are important. So from many years ago, like 20 odd years ago, Anthony Robbins did this talk, and he said at one point, and my wife told me this, he said at one point, if your question is, why am I such a loser? You're going to get 20 reasons why you're a loser. The problem is, it probably doesn't help you that much to know why you're such a loser. So instead of asking, why am I a loser, you ask, how can I be a winner? And then you get answers back, but at least you've got something you can work with that's going to take you in a better direction, or in a direction that you want or you're happy about. So the only thing about asking, how can I be a winner, is that winners imply losers. If you're going to win, then somebody else has to lose. So maybe asking, so the questioner who left a comment, she could ask, what kind of question could she ask that doesn't emphasize the fact that she has a problem? So instead of, how can I be a winner? Is there a better way? And then I wrote down, how can we all be winners? But somehow that's not that much better, because that means that there's a whole ton of losers as well. So she could ask, how do I get, okay, I need one card. How do I get out of the mess that I'm in? Or the problem with that, I think, is that you're identifying the mess that you're in and emphasizing the fact that you have difficulties. So asking, how can I get out of the difficulty, in some ways isn't the right question to ask. And when I was in my 20s, I used to smoke cigarettes. I used to smoke Gauloise and Gitane. And then I tried to give up multiple times. And if you've ever tried to give up smoking, you know what it's like. You spend all day, every day thinking, I'm not going to smoke, I'm not going to smoke. And it's in your mind all the time. And it's as if you're still a smoker, even if you're not smoking cigarettes. So what you do, the way to give up smoking is forget about it and do something else instead. And just move on. And I'm thinking, if you've got a problem, and if the questioner has a problem, you can't really solve it. You can't make the check arrive quicker, and you can't create a job if there are no jobs. So what do you do instead? You forget about it and do something else instead. Because if you do that, and let's say our question is, how can I make today better than yesterday? That, I think, is a good question. And if you do that every day, you're involved with an ongoing improvement of your life, because it's always today, right? And so if you're, how can I make today better than yesterday? And the answers that you get may be big and earth-shattering about the difference that you can make and what you can do today that makes a huge difference. But there can also be little things that make a difference as well. And I was remembering about when I finished university and I couldn't think what to do. And I thought, okay, I'll become a high school teacher, like, you know, people do when they can't think of anything else to do. So I was going to go to Jordan Hill, teacher college in Glasgow. And I had a part-time or a summer job as a security guard. And I had this patrol route to go on. So I was sitting in this truck on a rainy night about 2 a.m. And I thought, I don't want to go to Jordan Hill. I want to leave the country. So I'm going to look in the paper tomorrow and I'm going to take the first job I can find anywhere in the world. I'm just going to take it and go. And so I looked in the London Times the next day and they wanted history graduates, and I was a history graduate, to teach in Switzerland. They didn't want teachers to teach in Switzerland. They wanted graduates. So I qualified. So I applied and got the job, and one thing led to another. So the thing is, big results and life-changing things can happen when you do something small. Because all I did was think, okay, I'm going to get any job anywhere. And it made all the difference. So when the commentator who left the question or left the comment, little things that you do can produce huge and undreamt of results and set you on a whole different path. So rather than get a card that says, do this little thing and think, well, it's just a little thing, it's not going to work. Instead of plunging ahead or imagining and defeating yourself by thinking, well, it's not going to work. Well, it's not if you decide it's not going to work. So I thought my thinking at the time to the question was, pick a card to know what to do next. But you want the answer to come from the part of you that knows what you need to do next. Because people are inventive and creative and produce things and do the impossible all the time. So why can't the commentator or the commenter? So I'm thinking, pick a card for what to do next or how to make tomorrow better or today better than yesterday. So that if you do that, how can I make today better than yesterday? You're always on a road to improvement. So you're thinking, rather than trying to fix what is in the past, you're moving forward on a continuously improving journey. Because every day you're doing one little thing or one big thing that's going to make today better than yesterday. So it's always better. So you're not trying to fix what went wrong and looking backwards. You're looking into the future, but also you're in the present. And I wrote down this thing. Shakespeare, he said at one point, what's past is prologue. So what has gone on is the introduction to what's going to happen in the future. So what's past isn't going to hold you down or beat you up or destroy you. What's past is a prologue. It's something to learn from, something to build on, something to reject if it's useless, so you can move into the future. So let's say, and I was thinking about this. So let's say the commentator or the commenter, it's what I do next, and she gets the 8 of Cups. Maybe she can't move away because the 8 of Cups shows somebody walking away, but there's a five cups and 3 cups in the foreground, and they're neatly organized. So what can she do to make today better than yesterday? Or what can she do to improve her situation? The 3 cups and the 5 cups, get organized, clean, tidy. And it may not seem like much, but it changes you a little bit. And that's important. Or else, let's say you get the three of swords, which has got the rain and the heart and the swords through it. What do? Maybe, well, you personally can come up with a different suggestion for the Eight of Cups, and the three of swords. But with the Three of Swords, I thought, cry, because sometimes you're holding it all in and it's going nowhere. But if you cry and sob uncontrollably, you let it out and it's refreshing. So if the questioner, whoever it happens to be, gets the Three of Swords and you have a quick cry or a long cry, then when you start looking at your situation again, you're refreshed. So it's not the same person looking ahead as the one who was looking behind. In the 1960s, people used to say, I used to say, you get back what you give out. Nowadays, it's the law of attraction and it's complicated, but back then it was simple. You get back what you give out. So if you're not happy with what life is giving you, with what's coming back, start giving out something different. And that's going to change what you get back, because you get back what you give out. So if our questioner with the Eight of Cups tidied up or organized or went through stuff they've been meaning to do that they've been avoiding, then they're going to get back something different, because they're giving out something different. They're going to get something different back. So if you cry from the Three of Swords, it's refreshing. So it's a slightly different you who is sending out to the universe or the cosmos or whatever, or just asking your inner being for something better. Okay. I was going to stop at this point, but I can't stop. So in the Lover's card, I'll try this. In the Lover's card, you've got, in the Rider deck, you've got Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and you've got the serpent, and you've got the tree, and you've got the fruit, the forbidden fruit. So, there's two trees in the Garden of Eden. There's the tree of knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. And Adam and Eve are told, you can eat from the tree of life and live forever, or you can eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and you'll die. So they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and they were cast out of Eden, and then they had Cain and Abel, and then one thing led to another, and it's a kind of catalogue of disasters and problems after that. So last summer and autumn, I think it was, I was interested in Adam and Eve and what it might mean, and I came across Jordan Peterson's lectures on, I think it's Maps of Meaning, the book that he wrote. If you hate Jordan Peterson, that's okay. He's a Gemini. And what's good about him, among other things, is he's done all the research, or he's done a lot of research, and he talks about it, and he saves you 20 years of reading. So his summaries are well informed, and his ideas are quite interesting as well. So he talks interestingly about the Bible. And okay, sorry, I'm looking at this thing. What did I write? Oh yeah, okay, so the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it occurred to me partway through listening to Jordan talk, like hours into his videos, that he's focusing on what happened to Adam and Eve after they were cast out of the Garden of Eden. But he completely ignores the fact that they were told, don't eat from that tree, eat from the tree of life. So the tree of life is like unity, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil is two. So it seems to me we should eat from the tree of life and not from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So, if you're thinking of doing something, you say to yourself, am I going to have more life because of what I do? In which case, do it. If it's not going to give you more life, and you know what you mean by life, then don't do it. Because there's a line in Bob Dylan, he not busy being born is a busy dying. So if what you're about to do or what you're planning or what you're doing is you being born and growing and developing and learning, then it's a good thing. But if it's not that type of activity, then don't do it. Because what I think we're supposed to do is choose what will give us more life and not what will give us less death. Because the problem with the tree of knowledge of good and evil is they have the mistaken idea that in order to know what life is, you've got to know what the opposite is. You've got to know what death is. So when you know what death is, you can understand life. Or when you know what bad is, you can understand good. And that's why we have to have war and disease and problems, so that we can understand and learn what the opposite is. And that's just not true. Because we're supposed to do the good, and we know what the good is. We don't need to know what the bad is so that we can understand what the good is. So, can't read that. So, we know what life is. We don't need to know what death is. So I'm saying stay away from the knowledge of good and evil. And it's a bit like, and I'm sort of losing my train of thought here, but I'll maybe come back to it. Or if you've got questions, maybe I can give my explanation of a bit more of it. But I think the point is, we know that 2 and 2 is 4. We know what's right, or what we should do that's right for us. And if we learn something from the experience, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. We learn from it. That's valuable. So we know that 2 plus 2 is 4. We don't need to know that 2 plus 2 is not 5, and it's not 6, and it's not 7. You don't need to. We don't need to know what something isn't in order to know what it is, because we know what life is and what life-giving means for us. And we know what to do. We should trust ourselves. And to finish up, I was remembering Dazed and Confused, the movie with Matthew McConaughey and lots of other people. And on the football field, he says, livin, Livin. Okay. I don't know what you'll think of all this. So I'll leave it with you, and next time we'll do the last 3 cards in the horoscope spread. So anyway, thank you very much for watching if you made it this far, and I'll see you in a couple of days. Okay, bye-bye.